Hey, welcome everybody. My name is Bill Hood with the Trucking MBA, and joining me today is Craig Leonard. And we have our new show that we're going to start putting out called Experience Matters, and we're going to mix things up. We're going to be talking to a lot of different experts. We want to be talking to you. We're going to be answering your questions, and we're going to be discussing the various aspects of trucking industry and running a small trucking company out there, and getting input from people who have done this on a larger scale and have more experience, as well as bringing people in and getting their specific experiences on how they're working with their clients and with their companies. So again, today I've got Craig Leonard here. Craig and I and Ann, our families here have been friends for probably going on 8-9 years now.
Yeah, at least. Yeah.
Yeah. So Craig and Ann are one of the original OGs in terms of booking freight themselves for their truck and making a living booking freight. They started with our old trucking company, where we kind of were one of the companies that started the self-dispatch model. We did things very differently. We actually did training and had mentorships. And Craig and Ann, I don't want to say they were the number one, because I really don't have data on who mentored more people out there, but they were definitely in the top 3 in terms of mentorship to our drivers, the people who lease their trucks onto us. And what I've learned over the years is what I saw over the years is when you're a mentor to somebody, you learn as much as the people you're helping out there. So they definitely got a lot of experience in dealing with a lot of different people out there. Not a couple of years ago, we talked to them about selling their truck, coming off the road. I like to say they retired and started a dispatching company. And it was a completely selfless act on our part, because when you work with a lot of people getting their trucking company set up, you see a lot of different dispatching companies who try to solicit you to recommend them. And there are very few that I would ever recommend. I'd rather personally teach people how to dispatch their own truck than recommend some of these people. So we knew Craig and Ann knew what they were doing. Craig has all 3 of what I like to say are the key components when it comes to being able to dispatch yourself. He understands markets. That's something I think everybody can learn. Number 2 is he has a ability to actually build relationships very quickly with brokers. And the third one, he just has a very quick mind for the numbers. So he can spot trends and what's happening within different markets. And when you put the 3 of those together, you really got something special there. So I don't know what else to say about you, Craig. Welcome.
Well, I can talk about myself forever if you'd like me to. Yes. No.
Yeah. Well, now we talk about me. So that's enough.
That was mostly true. And then I'm supposed to talk about how awesome you are now. And I think
no, we're okay. Everybody, I think
everybody knows. I get it.
That's a given. Yes. Yeah. So.
Yeah, this was a total accident. Honestly, we had no intention of becoming dispatchers for anyone, and we were very, very successful on our own. We actually started the mentorship thing. Started even when we were company drivers. We started out with U.S. Express as a team, and when we started doing it, when we went and got our CDLs, we couldn't find any information. We'd never been in a semi truck. I somehow had decided it would be a good idea, and my incredible wife tagged along. So when we started the process, we started a blog so that we could kind of share our experience as we moved down that road, down that path. I mean, the very first thing we did after we went to a CDL school to talk to them about what it would take to get our CDLs, we stopped at a Kenworth dealership as we were leaving to look inside a semi truck, because if we're going to be living in a truck, we wanted to kind of have an idea what the space would look like, because we had no idea. And so anyways, we started this blog, and it ended up with, we had a lot, it got kind of big. It's still kind of active. We post every once in a while on it. Since we got out of the truck, it hasn't been we're going to start probably doing more. But I mean, we had a ton of followers. And so where we walk into a truck stop in Connecticut, and somebody would recognize Ann and say, "Oh, I follow your blog." It happened all the time to us. We'd be out at dinner in Dallas, and somebody would say, "Oh, I know you guys," and it got freaky a little bit. But honestly, and Ann probably more than myself, because I drove nights. So I drove 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. So I would listen when I'd wake up when she was driving. I'd hear her on the phone all day long talking to a lot of women, making them comfortable. We had a ton. I wish I'd known when we started out what the referral bonus was at US Express, because we probably, I don't know how many teams, young couples went to US Express because we did. And then, we could have made a lot. We could have almost doubled our income probably. And they stayed in touch with us, and we still stay in touch. We have quite a few friends now. Some of them are still in trucking. Some of them are out. A lot of people early on. I mean, you just kind of, the turnover ratio in the first 6 months is staggering in trucking.
Yeah.
That's very difficult. And that was kind of part of what that's kind of where the mentoring came in at the beginning is, we'd see people go through all the effort and money and time to get their CDLs, go through training, go out with some guy they didn't know in a truck for 8 to 10 weeks, as part of the training process. And 3 weeks after they get their own truck, they have 3 bad days in a row and they quit. And it's just a lot. And, it's just a whole bunch of time and money invested in getting to this point, and they just give up because in trucking, it's unique in the fact that probably being an astronaut is very similar. If you have one bad day, it rolls into the next, and,
right.
And so I think that it's kind of that where you'd never leave work. And so you don't go home, watch a baseball game and have a talk with your wife about what a crappy day it was, and then start tomorrow. You actually you go to sleep at work, you wake up at work. And so it tends to be kind of and I think that's where a lot of it is just these guys are out there alone on the road, and it's just very difficult. So,
yeah. I have to say, I mean, it was a long time ago, but there's certain things you remember in your life. I remember the Johnson's Corner where, Johnson's Corner, truck stop, laying in the back, the sickest, probably not as sick as I've ever been, but first time being sick in a truck and being away from home and everything else. And I gotta say, man, it breaks you down. You really question what you're doing at that point when there are certain things that so I appreciate that as far as, you go to sleep and you wake up at work and it doesn't matter. I think I became at that point became a little bit of a germaphobe. I had my disinfectant wipes, and I wiped that truck down every single chance I get. And even had, like, when I go into the ports, and I'd wipe down the handset. And people would look at me like I'm crazy. I'm like, man, you know what? Last thing I want to ever be is sick.
There is nothing more unpleasant than being sick in a semi truck. We both have the flu in a truck.
All right, so let's jump into this here. So, in getting started, just so you know, as you're watching this, welcome. We want questions. We're actually going to start building this up, or we schedule people to come on and talk with, in this case, Craig. If you have questions about booking freight, we're going to have Lauren on here, where we're going to talk about the compliance and the safety. Craig and I will both a little bit about business building aspects of things. We've got insurance experts, so we're going to bring a lot of different experts on here. So, any questions about starting your company or running your trucking company, please shoot them out there. Getting started here, what I did is I've got a few questions that we're just going to start out here with for you. And, the first one that I've got some beliefs on this, but you can't book freight and you can't run your truck in the first 90 days when you start your authority. So you should just activate it, pay for the insurance, and let it sit. What are your thoughts on that?
Seeing people do that. I've had people come to me where their authority's been active for 4 or 5 months because they're paying for their insurance, they're paying a truck payment, and it's just the craziest thing ever. I just go, God, if you could have talked to me 120 days ago. We've got a list. We actually, we have a lot of clients, and so we deal with a lot of brokers. And one of the first things was, especially with a broker we don't know or haven't worked with before, which happens, there's so many brokers, we ask them what's your policies on working with new authorities, and we keep a database. And I've got over 100 brokers, some of the biggest in the country, actually the biggest in the country too. And they're tough, sometimes they can be kind of tough to work with. But as they get experience with you as a carrier, they get easier to work with because if you're good, they keep track. They have all the metrics on the backside to track that. So, when you start out, what you may not get is some of the best loads or best rates that they're willing to offer. If you have experience with them, they're going to be a little more aggressive in what they're willing to pay. but there are, yeah, no, we actually specialize in newer authorities. It's hard starting out. It's not, I mean, the first 90 days, after 90 days, honestly, it does get a lot easier, but there's brokers that require 6 months. There's brokers that require a year. There's brokers that require 2 years on your authority before they book a load with you. There's not very many of those. You can work around that. If you keep the key, honestly, and this is, this is the thing, keep the truck where the freight is. Just keep it where the freight is. Don't get tempted by this great rate to Denver or this great rate to South Florida or to North Dakota. It depends on the kind of equipment you've got. Going to Denver with a reefer isn't bad, generally, if you get good enough money in. And you'll go anywhere. I mean, if somebody wants to pay me round trip, we'll go anywhere. One of the last loads Ann and I ran as a team, because I couldn't give it up after she got out of the truck. I drove solo for a little bit, but one of the last loads we ran was to Queens, New York. And, and you say, oh, Annie, we'll never go to Queens. Well, it turns out for $5 a mile, I'll go anywhere, and so
you're kind of a slut, aren't you?
I am a little bit of a slut when it comes to that kind of thing. So I have a price. So, and in this market, it would have been $7 or $8 a mile, back in the, I can get $5 a mile today. It's on loads in other places, but, it really is. It's important just to if you keep the truck, if you have a plan, when you start, I think this is probably the biggest thing. I saw a question on Facebook yesterday or two days ago, in one of the groups I'm in, where some girl, lady, I don't know her. I didn't look up who she was, but she was talking about, they booked obviously a new authority, and they booked the load into Florida. She goes, I'm never going to Florida again. I had no idea it'd be this hard to get out. And that's just experience. There's no doubt about it. There's nothing wrong with going to Florida if the rate in is the right rate. It doesn't matter what time of year, I
used to always tell people, as far as it's not a matter of if you're going to make a mistake, it's when. And so all you have to do when you make a mistake is just recognize it and don't make it worse by trying to think, oh, well, I'm going to be able to find something better tomorrow. No, if your truck's sitting, you should be sick to your stomach if your truck's sitting. You just got to get out and you got to move.
Mm-hmm.
One of a couple points on that I like to, I did some math. The top brokers that will work with brand new authorities represent over $2 billion. I'm sorry, back that up. I missed a zero. $20 billion in annual freight spend. That's a lot of freight. And that's not talking about any of the we'll say mid-size, people that are 500 million a year and going down. These are the big guys out there. So that's a lot of freight for somebody on day one that they can book. The other thing I like to tell people, and you mentioned it on there as far as they track you. And when I hear people say, well, somebody said you can't do this. I say there's two things, and you brought it up. You got to stay in the market where there's freight. Don't go to Minot, North Dakota. Right. Second thing is they probably either have listened to everybody and said, I refuse to work with these garbage brokers, right? Mm-hmm. These ones that have the freight for you. Right. Or they do things like they think an appointment is a suggestion. And I'll tell you what, you want to kill yourself, and a good portion of that $20 billion in freight is show up late on a delivery for a load at TQL or CH Robinson or Landstar, because not that those companies won't work with you, but the agents that are good won't work with you. All you get from that point on are those garbage ones that you hear the horror stories about. You don't hear about the great, the people you want to work with, that you're dead to them at that point if you can't show up on time. So
the big brokers, they've got the data to back up everything they do. Honestly. So, I mean, which means you need to know what the market is supposed to be, what the market supports. When you're going to make a call to, one of the, CH Robinson, TQL, whatever, Coyote, the big guys, they've got the data. They know exactly what the lane should be paying. They don't want to pay that rate. That's not what they want. They know what the lane does pay. And so if you don't know, you'll make all kinds of mistakes. But the big thing is, the first words out of their mouth when you call them is, what's your MC? That's first words out of their mouth. And the reason they ask that is because they type it in and it brings up your entire history with them. right there. So if you've been late on 3 out of the first 4 loads you ran, they're not really excited. It's because, and that's a service failure. Their clients, their customers, the receiver or shipper, they're keeping track of that data, guaranteed. And and they don't want to lose those clients. And they spend a lot of time and money getting those clients, and you can screw it up for them. So they're not going to be offering you the best rates. They don't really care that much if you take the load. If they have to move it, they'll take you. Honestly,
Right.
that's kind of, you've got to perform, especially up front. I mean, I don't want to say that. That's not what I want to say. Not especially up front, all the time. Ann and I, other than mechanical breakdown or weather, in the 9 years we were driving the truck, and I know it's only 9 years, but we drove a couple million miles. We never had a service failure, not once. We were never late because of anything we ever did. When we booked a load, sometimes we book solo loads because, you're somewhere and there's no team freight. So you got to get out of there and you try to negotiate an early delivery, but you're going to get there a day early. We would get there a day early. You spend your screwing around time at the delivery, not at the pickup or anywhere in between. I mean, yes, you can stop for dinner, stop for lunch, that kind of a thing, find cool places to eat. You have some time in the schedule. That's nice. But we would get to our delivery as quickly as possible. Try to check in and see if they'll take us early. I guarantee you, we probably made an extra, and I'm not exaggerating here. I really don't think I'm exaggerating. At least $20,000 to $25,000 a year because we would check in early for deliveries.
And no, you're not exaggerating because, well, I don't know the exact number there, but I can tell you when we did our 18-month study of our drivers and where the numbers were, that was one of the things that popped out, and didn't have a lot of teams. So, we didn't really focus on the team aspect of it, but you and Ann definitely popped in there with we used to talk about first come, first serve. And the drivers who regularly were what we labeled as successful showed up early on the first come, first serves. And the people that had trouble showed up, either missed it. You got to be, you could have made the opening slot on it from your drive time, and they missed that 12-hour window late, or they came in so late on it that because of the shipper, they weren't able to get unloaded that day, and they had to wait around to the next day. So those are the types of things I also, as far as booking freight, I will move off of this here in just 1 second, but we have a factoring company, so we actually see the actual numbers that new carriers do. And I can tell you this right now, our carriers with 1 month experience versus those with 3 to 6 months are not making significantly less money in the market. I was really kind of surprised. I mean, you have, several of your clients are our factoring clients. So I see the numbers, and I got to say, as much as I say you can make money, I didn't think you could actually. I didn't think somebody that had been out there a year is going to make the same money as somebody that's out that starts their, in their first month. And we're seeing that actually does happen. You can make that kind of money. Now that's the market.
Bill is the driver. It's your performance.
Yeah.
If you're on time, honestly, if you communicate, from a dispatch standpoint, our clients that make the most money communicate with us. We know when when they arrive at the pickup, when they're loaded, they give us their ETA. We can be super, and their ETA matches what they actually do. I can't tell you how many times we had a team. This was a couple years ago. We had a team that we called them, and this just stands out. It's just something, and they said ETA is 1 o'clock. It was 10 o'clock in the morning, 10 o'clock in the time zone they were in, and they said their ETA was 1300. 3 hours. And at 1300, we texted them and said, "Have you arrived?" And then and they didn't respond. And so, okay, they must be unloading. Half hour later, I called them. Oh, we're going to be there about 3:30. How do you lose 2.5 hours on top of a 3 hour drive? You told me you were 3 hours away, and 3 hours later, you tell me you're 2.5 hours away.
Yeah.
Either you weren't 3 hours. I don't know. I don't even know where to go with that. Right.
Yeah.
And that was consistent. And because of that, we dispatch a number of small fleets, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 trucks. And so those are all company drivers for the owner, and they're all getting paid on a percentage. They're not on mileage, and yeah, which I love because we can share. They know the rates. They know everybody's up front. Everybody knows what's going on. It's a policy actually I have. But the drivers would say, well, I need to make more money, and they would talk to me or they talk to the owner of the truck and they say, dude, just be on time. You can give yourself a 20% pay raise. Just be on, because you talk about making more money, but you never make your deliveries on time. And because of that, I can't book your truck. We're not going to do more service failures on top of service failures. I have to wait until you show up because I can't trust what you've told me. So once you're at the delivery and you're getting unloaded, then we can start looking for a load for you. But maybe there was all kinds of great loads 4 hours ago that we could have booked, but I didn't know that you could pick them up. And because the company you work for can't afford that. They can't afford to be booking loads and not make the pickups because those brokers will blacklist it. They're done.
Yeah. And people need to, as we're talking about this, so now we're talking about communication, right? And we're talking about the level of service that you provide. And people need to understand, and I think especially when you get out there in some of these groups out there, and one of the reasons I wanted to do stuff like this is because there's a lot of experts, my little expert here, there's a lot of experts out there that it's one person, one truck, they've this is what they've done, right? And that's all they've done. So yeah, they may be good at what they do. A lot of times when you listen to them, you realize that they're a driver, right? And they're not a business owner. And the communication side of things, that's what we're talking about. We're talking about being a business owner. And the challenges of having drivers is, do they think of it like they're a business? Which I do love that percentage model because it's kind of like they talk about narcotics, break that blood-brain barrier. It's like, how do you break that blood-brain barrier to get them to be, okay, I'm a business owner here now, and because I get paid on a percentage, I need to run this like a business. Mm-hmm. And it's an appointment, not a suggestion, not a, I
had drivers say that to me. Oh, I didn't know I needed. I actually, it was a newer driver. He's only been with my client for a couple of weeks. But I called him. I said, "You're going to make your 10 a.m. appointment," and he said, "Oh, do I need to be on time?" He literally said, "Yeah." And oh my God, we need to talk, right? We need to talk,
right? And those are the people that if up front you were sit there and you would have like a little mini orientation and say, "Okay, on time every time," and they'd be offended. Well, of course I'm going to be on time every time, right? And the people who realize, that do that and realize that's important, they're the ones that are like, "Oh yeah, man, I know why you're saying that," because nobody seems to want to be able to show up on time. People need to understand that this is such a simple industry to look like a rock star.
I've said forever. I mean, people ask me today, I really do miss driving the truck. Ann does not at all. We use the truck as a vehicle to move us from family member to friend to party to vacation to whatever. And so it was she loved that part of it. We never had to get on a plane. We wanted to go to Key West. We'd book a load to South Florida, knowing we were going to take it in, coming out. But we'd go to get a good load into South Florida and, rent a car and drive down to Key West and, that kind of a thing. But I think that
You're lying. You never did that.
We never did that. And, the good news is, I can download pictures from the internet of Key West. So
yeah, no, I know. It's a joke, everyone, as far as when they first came to us and they talked about and the things that they would do as a team. There was a troll out there that used to follow them around saying that they never did these things. And now here I am, as far as they're running under our authority, and I'm seeing them haul lions, tigers, and bears, and things like that, and go places that. Quite honestly, I was jealous about it. So we're going to try to follow in their footsteps, I guess, at some point.
But it's just that talking about being on time. There are places, Walmart, Walmart DC, they'll let you in the gate 1 hour before your appointment, right? That's it.
Right.
If you show up an hour and 10 minutes early, they will turn you around and tell you to come back. But we showed up 1 hour before our appointment every single time. You know, and first, I mean, even if we had an appointment, you know, if it's not a distribution center, you're going to a warehouse somewhere or something like that, and we had an appointment tomorrow at 6 a.m. and we got there at 4:30 in the afternoon the day before, we would go try to check in. You know, and I'd blame it on of course, I blame it on the dispatcher. Oh, that dispatcher screwed up.
That all the time.
You know, so I'd make up some story. It's the same thing I do. I tell our employees, I said, always, it's kind of the same thing. I said, you know, make it plausible. Give them an opportunity to help you. And I tell our employees, give the broker a chance to back out of their lie, because the brokers are always, you know, they're always lying to you about how much money they have in the load and stuff like that. So don't ever just hang up the phone and get angry. Give them a chance to back out of that. They want to book the load. Right. So it's kind of the same thing. But we were going on vacation up in Seattle. We were taking a week off for our anniversary. We did that every year. And we're in Kent, Washington at a FedEx. Now, we had an unloading appointment at 5 o'clock the next morning. We got there at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, which is where these numbers came from. And I checked in and they say, come back tomorrow. So I come in and tell Ann. And so then Ann says, well, I got to go use the bathroom. And she walks in the door, and I'm sitting in the driver's seat because we're going to go find a place to park. I'm looking for a truck stop. And while I'm sitting there, all of a sudden I feel a forklift go into the back of the truck. And so Ann had gone in, batted her eyes, and told them, you know, we were going on vacation. As soon as we're unloaded, we're on vacation. And we ended up with 3 forklifts unloading us. We were unloaded in less than 10 minutes. So it's just, you know, but that's because you try. Well, it's also because you have Ann, you know.
Yeah.
You know, nobody else.
Yes. So we kind of went on here. So and hit kind of a lot of topics talking about. No, everybody, you don't need to have 3 months in order to get freight. Yes, you do have to act like a business person, and appointments are appointments. They're not suggestions. Communication. Sometimes shit happens, and the difference between somebody that is going to get the benefit of the doubt and the person that isn't is going to be that person that communicates. And I'll tell you that what we've seen, and we had the data, and you saw it as far as our authority. We were known as the communication company as far as for a lot of the brokers, and we built that reputation up. And it wasn't the brokers require. I mean, back then it was MacroPoint was the tracking, but it was a requirement of our organization that if the broker wanted MacroPoint tracking, you accepted MacroPoint tracking. And we had terminated leases with guys that did that, and we made that clear before they leased us. So if somebody didn't want to do that, that's, you know, it's your business. If you don't want to do that, that's fine. But that communication, I think I can count on one hand the time that when something happened. Now remember, we're up to 80 trucks, so I mean we had a lot of freight that was being moved. Count on one hand when something happened, and that we'd call up a broker and we'd say, hey, the driver had a flat, the driver's radiator, whatever it happened to be, that they would question us and they'd want us to prove it. I could tell you, you probably see this more now, cross it. It's almost like they just automatically don't believe you. Yeah. And that's not, I mean, partly if you're new, that's not because of you, right? Because you don't have a history to say whether you are reliable or not. But that tells you what the industry, and why I say it's pretty easy to be a rock star. If you over communicate, if you call in, you check in, even if they're tracking you, and you call in, you check in, you let them know what's going on. Hey, I'm shutting down for the night. I'm 150 miles away. I'll make my 8 a.m. appointment, no problem, tomorrow morning. I got 14 hours, so I'll get my 10 hours in, and I got plenty of time to get there. You would not believe, if you just make that as a part of your business, that the good brokers will remember that. They track that, and they'll work with you again. It's
about building relationships. You know, it's kind of thing. First of all, I won't dispatch a truck that won't track. I won't do it. I mean, you see these guys on Facebook all the time saying nobody's tracking me, and they're posting on Facebook.
Oh yeah, it's like my privacy is paramount to me. It's like, listen, and we're honest about it. Is nobody cares about privacy, right? Honest. I mean, nobody cares about it. It's just, you're just not using these platforms. You're not out there. You're not using a smartphone, period. Right? You're back to your flip phone. But
but the other thing, so that's also part of it, about tracking. But when something goes wrong, and something will always go wrong. I mean, when we, especially with we're dealing with so many different companies, clients. There's always a truck broken down. There's always a driver who didn't show up. We don't know why this guy picked up the load and went home instead of because he thinks he can take a day off at home and still make his delivery, whatever. And the broker will call and I'll get my phone will ring, from one of the girls in the office, and they'll say, what do we tell the broker? I said, the truth. Tell them the truth. You don't have to remember what the truth is. You don't have to make up some other story to say, look, we can't get a hold of the driver. Tell them the truth. If it's a breakdown and then you can back up whatever it is. If you say it's a breakdown, it's not a breakdown. And they say, well, just send us the receipts. We're fine with that. Right. Yeah. So then what do you do? So just tell them the truth. And that's all. That's just a good policy, and building relationships. You talk about, the big brokers, C.H. Robinson, Coyote, these guys. We actually have, C.H. Robinson's the largest, in the country. We actually have all of our clients use the same C.H. Robinson rep. We got a guy in Charlotte that we have a text app open with him all day long. So any of our clients, if we're looking at a C.H. Robinson load, Chris, our guy, is set up to work with all of our clients directly. So it's about building those relationships. Yes, it's this huge monolith of a company, but we got Chris, right? And Chris takes care of us because we're not just a one truck operation, even though most of our clients are one truck operations. We've got a ton of trucks that we're moving through him, and he does well with us. And he's got a problem, he can text us and say, hey, do you guys have a truck anywhere? He's not asking about any one of our specific clients necessarily, but he's saying, do you have a truck anywhere near Columbus, Ohio? And we can look and say, yeah, I got a guy 25 miles away. He's be empty in 2 hours. We can help him out too. It's not just a one-way street. So that's a big part of it. Honestly, is even with these big companies, TQL is a little tougher. They do the brokers at TQL generally, the big, the guys who've been there a while are real sharp operators. So good people. They got a bunch of kids working for them generally, who are following scripts. You just have to, you have to know how they think and what they're told to do, how to navigate that environment. And some of our best paying loads ever, when Ann and I were driving, some of our best paying, I hear people trash TQ all the time, and there's some reasons for it. It's a big company, and so there's going to be that kind of stuff, right? But some of our best paying loads ever with TQL, period.
Yeah, well, they were always in our top 5 and usually hit 1, 2, or 3 on a monthly basis of the rates. And one of the things that people don't understand, I think they lose it. They get it more because of the way Landstar operates, right? You got the agency, right? And so it's a lot easier for them to comprehend that, and I'm not going to use any of the agency letters because I don't want to bash a specific agency, but ABC,
there are great agencies and there are really bad agencies in Landstar.
Right, yeah. But, so they see ABC and they know that's an independent office, and I'm going to avoid ABC at all costs. And I apologize if there is actually an ABC agency out there. It's not intentional at all.
I felt so good, happy having that office designation.
Yeah, it would be very cool, wouldn't it? It's all airport codes, by the way, folks. If you're trying to figure that out, that's what they go by. The Landstar, you need to think of it that way. They're pods. And each pod is an agency, is like a Landstar agency. And when you're talking about a $3 billion, that's right, that's 3 with a big B behind it, $1 billion in freight, and over 2,000 agents, and I think there are like 700, probably 800 pods right now that they have as far as within TQL. You got to think of each of those pods as separate brokerage companies. Now, would you say, oh, I booked with this small brokerage company out of Topeka and they screwed me, so I'm not going to book with another 700 small brokers because this one screwed me? That's what you do when you microphone hit. That's what you do when you say, I got screwed by this pod leader and I'm never going to work with TQL again, because what you've just done is you've taken a small little business under an umbrella, a franchise, if you would. And, it's like you have a bad experience at one Subway. Do you automatically assume every Subway sucks? Well, if you've only been to one Subway, sure. But if you work with other ones, she's like, oh, no, okay, that's just, that guy doesn't care about cleanliness or his employees or something. So that's what I think people need to do. I really love the way the transition, because C.H. Robinson, it used to be you dealt with each. When you started, you didn't have a dedicated C.H. Robinson rep. You dealt with each office, and they transitioned that. I think that's very smart on their part. They saw what Coyote did and what what some of the Chicago-based or Chicago model brokerages did. So listen, we're really running in here. That 5-10 minute, let's get in and hit it. And we're here just BSing. Yeah. I mean, it's a good thing we're not sitting here with cocktails, folks, because we'd be here for hours talking, because that's what we tend to do. So thank you so much. Go ahead, give us your information, and we'll make sure that we have it as far as in the comment sections for people. But if somebody wants to reach you, Craig, how are they going to do that?
Well, it's Logistics ATB is the company. Phone number, just give 423-682-6696. It's 423-682-6696. And it's Craig at logisticsatb.com. Alpha Tango Bravo. So.
All right. And like I said, we'll put that in the comments and the replays for you. So again, thank you so much for being here, Craig. And we look forward to doing this hopefully on a weekly basis. We can get out and do this. And tell you folks, please come back, because we'll have very specific questions, and we'll keep it shorter as far as
that's me. It's
us. It's us. I see. I got a little. I'm not sure if people see this, because I don't know what people see on the other side, but I got a little counter up there. It tells me how long we've been going. I looked up at it when it was getting at 20 minutes, like, wow, we're going long. And now I'm looking at 36 minutes. So thank you, everyone. We're going to have replays of this showing up, and we'll post up a schedule as far as what the shows are and what we're doing here shortly. Thanks a lot.